Okay, it took us most of the afternoon, but we're finally here. I think it's just through this door here. You excited?
I'm so excited, Nord.
All right, we have to do the secret knock, and then they'll let us into the masquerade. Here goes. Knock, knock.
Wow, that was the secret knock? Who would have guessed?
What is the password?
Oh, the password. Yes, it's SPNatI.
You may enter.
Oh, yes, great. Here we go. Right, let's go.
I'm with him.
Nord, Arndress,
Yes.
you both have your masks on?
Oh, yes, certainly. Yes.
Firmly affixed.
It's time for the Strip Poker Night at the Inventory Podcast, episode 98, to finally cover the actual characters submitted to testing as part of the 2024 Masquerade event. We talked about its organization with Insidiani. We talked about the various projects and how they progressed over the course of the event. And now we are finally talking about the projects themselves. That was the whole point, after all, to get these characters onto testing. So, I'm your host, spnanon, host of the Masquerade Party. Definitely, it was all me. I organized all of this. And here we have my two freeloaders, my co-host, Nord, and our returning guest, Arndress, who didn't do a damn thing. Absolutely not.
I did something very important. Two things. One is I was on the podcast, episodes 27, 52, and 97. And also, if it wasn't for me, we wouldn't be on version 13 right now. We would be on version 12 with a lot of numbers behind it. So, I mean, there's something I did.
Nord, was there anything you'd like to say in your defense?
I totally helped as well. I was there in the group chat, and occasionally I responded to a question Sid had. I was there, definitely.
Before we officially launch into things, I'd also like to repeat my shilling of the anonymous annual character feedback poll for the game, which you can find in the description below. You can leave all sorts of feedback, positive, negative, short, long, for any and every and each character currently online in the game. That's main roster and testing roster. So if you'd like to talk and leave feedback for these three Masquerade characters that we'll be talking about today, you can go do that there. Also, be sure to submit questions for the live cast AMA that the hosts of the podcast, that's me, spnanon, and my co-host Nord, as well as the editor, Mr. Solitaire. We will be answering questions and interacting with chat in the SPNatI social Discord server. And that'll be, for now, on September 7th, around 2 p.m. U.S. Eastern Time. We'll see if that holds. But for now, that's the time. So go get your questions in, and it'll be recorded if you can't make it. So let's get into the Masquerade proper. So some projects were brand new characters. We have two of those. But first off, some characters were reworks of existing characters, and that's what we have to talk about today. First up is Chiaki Nanami, the ultimate gamer from Danganronpa 2, I believe. Although sometimes I get confused because I think all the Danganronpa characters seem to know each other regardless of what game they're from. But she's from the second one, right?
Yeah, she is.
Her big thing is she's just kind of like a dopey and sleepy, and all she does is play video games, and she's good at all of them. She's a fan of all genres, except for dating sims, apparently. So I guess she wouldn't ever get into Vandred based on Vandred Love Quest, the Newgrounds Flash game. It's a shame. It's a shame. I really thought we could have connected in some way. But as Insid talked about previously, this was the work of Team High Hopes, among them Nicole, Horsecat, Ace Diamond, I believe. They, I think there may have been a newcomer in there as well. So
Polo Shroom.
Oh, right. Okay. So Polo's been around for a while. He's just hasn't been a dev. But yeah, I mean, Nicole has worked on Danganronpa characters before. Ace has as well with Aoi and is that the only one? That might be the only one. But Nicole's worked on Kyoko, Kirigiri as well. But now she has been totally revamped for with a brand new model and fancy posing and all that. I don't think they've touched her dialogue too much. But I mean, she was already pretty solid. She's been in the game for a long time, and she wasn't in like a horrible offline, unfinished state. No, she was a well-established character. The previous host of the podcast, Joe, actually worked on her for a long time. He was kind of sort of the steward of her. She changed hands a lot. She went through a lot of different models, especially early on. And she never looked like horrible relative to all her peers, but it had been quite a while since anyone had touched her. I definitely say this is a more accurate portrayal of her overall, but there was a bit of controversy, which you two will probably get into first, so I'll let you take the reins. Arndress, what did you think of Chiaki's art update?
It was art and dialogue. Unlike
mainly art, but yeah, it was a full rework.
The Ayla episode we talked about last, where it was mostly just an update. I know Nicole specifically did a lot of work revising her lines, going through each of Chiaki's lines and trying to really, I think a character improved a lot by working on the worst lines and turning them into the best lines. And I know that she did a lot of work in that. I think her net gain of lines was 264 lines in this return. But I looked at a diff of her file, as in all of the lines just sorted out, and there were 600 changes. So that could have been including like typos and just rewording things. But but definitely a net gain of 264 lines, which is pretty good. I think
I may be tipping my hand in saying that there was an art update because she didn't feel all that different dialogue-wise, but you can continue.
I appreciate that. Yeah,
she may not have felt all that different, but she was definitely like her developers went top to bottom and like found every single line to keep or revise. So it's definitely a lot more than you might think.
I think any writer who gets to work with Horsecat is lucky person, because Horsecat does amazing work. I was really impressed with Horsecat's work on Chaz in the previous Masquerade. Not something that was in his wheelhouse at that time or so. I thought he really only had My Little Pony girls at that time, but the Equestria girls. But Chaz was a surprise for me too, and the Chiaki upgrade was significant. Like you said, she started in a pretty reasonable place, certainly better than many characters that haven't been had attention for a long time. But it's just so much, her face and her outfit is so much more. It's so much closer to her canon appearance now, definitely. For the dialogue, I found good dialogue that I liked. I think that her take of a gamer is definitely like a strong one. At times it felt like that she really only had one touchstone. The touchstone method is where you write a whole bunch of things that a character might care about or say things about, different themes for their lines, and write a line that each theme. And it can be a good thing or a bad thing. If a character gets stuck only talking about one thing just due to the nature of randomness, that can be unfortunate. And that kind of felt like what Chiaki was like in the test games I played, where really it was not really that she wasn't like using video game lessons to apply them to her real life, but rather she was acting like she was inside a video game the whole time, and little does she know she is. But however, I'm sure that is mostly a product of her old writing. In fact, I looked up, she talked about her HP a lot. I looked up her HP in her old dialogue. She talks about it 20 times. I would probably pare that back down to 1 time, so she has no chance of saying that more than once per game. Other games where she talks about, like, if this were a game, though some of those games could work, or her games for backgrounds and looking around the backgrounds, I really enjoyed those. All up, I feel like despite all of the structural changes, the play experience with her did feel very similar for the test games that I played, but I having looked at the diff of the changes that has been submitted, I have a lot of confidence that the changes that have been made so far are in the right direction.
Before we continue, we should probably address the controversy, unless you're going to get into that, Nord, that originally accompanied her when she dropped.
I was going to briefly touch upon it actually. I want to start with like shouting out Horse Cat for just being Horse Cat and going crazy not only with the art in general but with doing custom poses that have to be hand drawn for every stage. Because Keisuke just does not support anything than the straight on angle. Which is actually funny because it works really well for Danganronpa characters because they literally have sprites in that style from source. I think Horse Cat deserves to be able to just flex his artistic talent. But on that note is that she had to go through multiple model reworks, specifically for her like unclothed stages, because they went a bit too far. Like collectively as a team, they all went a bit too far in like thinking, okay, if her chest is that big, it should like sag that much. And I think just in general, the reception was like, they're well made. They were well made, but they don't suit a young character, like a younger character, like the 20-something, like Chiaki, because it just felt like over the top and out of place. And I think the current version, it's been like revised, I think twice. It does a lot better for the size and shape, and for Chiaki in general. There's a bit of a weird controversy because we got like anonymous feedback accusing the community of being fat phobic for like saying, she's too chubby, her boobs sag too much. And I think even accusing us of being ageist as a result, which is bizarre because like she's literally, she's literally meant to be 20 years old.
There's also the opposing camp that was accusing the devs of pushing their fat fetish.
The thing is, we have our tag master in the community who outright said, "Listen, fellas, I like chubby girls, and I think this is too far and doesn't fit her character."
It's a fanon thing, People like to draw her as being chubby because she's like a sedentary gamer, but in the game itself, she's quite skinny like everyone else.
Part of that is just attributed to like the games themselves will always play it safe with character designs, especially like anime style games.
I don't know, some of them seem pretty out there in Danganronpa.
Maybe. There's
that girl that looks like All Might or some shit.
Yeah. I mean, fair. But yeah, I think the current design does strike a balance between like going for fanon but not going too over the top with it. And ultimately with especially with like artistic direction, it depends on like what experience is the average like Danganronpa fan who's a fan of Chiaki. If they pick her in SPNatI, what's the gameplay experience going to be for them? Are they going to be happy or are they going to be disappointed? And I think the current design will make most people happy. So big props to Horse Cat for being able to take the feedback and act on it multiple times even.
Well, even the original model, or the most recent one she had, did seem like it was leaning into the chubby thing.
It does, but it doesn't.
Because Joe liked that as well.
Yeah, it does, but it doesn't go too far with it, I'd say.
Well, the body detailing game just wasn't where it is today.
Yeah.
I mean, it's definitely done better today. Is there anything else you'd like to say about her overall, Nord?
Yes. Arndress already covered this briefly, but you were wrong in saying her dialogue wasn't really updated because I know for a fact. Well, I'll shout out Kiki Retzorg, aka Nicole here, for essentially leading the team, especially when it comes to dialogue. I think she's been the one who's been firing all the new lines and the changed lines into their character folder to get it sorted out. There were a couple of lines that were suggested that I think had to be either changed or removed just for sanity's sake. One that springs to mind is that I just casually noticed, there's a line here that has like conditions for like 50 characters, and it's literally a line that was saying, "Hey, I've played your game." And there was, you can leave notes on dialogue cases in the character editor, and the note Nicole had left was, So I think that one may have been removed just for sanity's sake, because it's one of those kinds of lines that you can't be expected to update in perpetuity. But other than like line ideas that don't pan out like that, I think they've been making solid progress in revising her. She was definitely already fine in the writing department, and like in the past, people have even said, like if she was to get an update, you don't really need to change what's there too much. You just need to like do some fixes and add more to what's already there.
Mm-hmm.
So shout outs to Horsecat and Nicole and to Ace and Polo Shroom for pulling through with the writing.
She's quite cute. I'm definitely of the opinion that the source is the source. It's nice that you like chubby girls, but if that's not how she's drawn, then I don't care what your fanon is. You know, if it means that much to you, I think this kind of thing should have been an alt skin. If it's something that fans do generally appreciate, but like
I would like to quickly interject and say shout outs to KedKit as well. They hadn't posted in a couple of weeks, but I think they did contribute to the writing as well. Another newcomer.
I will agree though that, you know, I'm glad that they at least listened to the feedback and toned it down somewhat, because I do the updated model that she has now, it does feel a little less inspired. I guess they weren't the biggest fans of having to tone it down, but it's probably, you know, it'll please more people in the end. As for everything else, as for the general experience, I mean, art-wise, she's so cute. It's the first thing I wrote down. Her face contorts in a way that I never saw her do in a previous model. Very expressive. You have obviously the flexes with the three-quarter poses, but they're done well. They're seamless in a way that I have yet to achieve properly, I'd say. Three-quarter's been a struggle for me. When you get a model this improved, this complex, I do think sometimes it introduces a new problem where it's hard to pose, so you don't want to pose it very much. I did feel like her pose variety was lacking somewhat. If she could maybe have a higher number of poses, if you could go back and add some more. It did feel like she was repeating that a lot. And the stripping poses that she had felt kind of underwhelming as well. And like, if there's anything you want to go all out for, it's not some random three-quarter pose that she uses sometimes. It's the stripping poses. You really want to custom draw stuff where it's like her clothes are halfway off or whatever. Really play up the sex appeal there. That being said, there was a pose, maybe you can find it while I'm talking, where she's I think removing her shirt or her bra or whatever, and a button pops off and goes flying. That's pretty funny. So I did enjoy that. When she was forfeiting as well, when she was masturbating, I think she flitted between kneeling and sitting down. Obviously, I'm always going to go for sitting down, but especially don't constantly shift back and forth between them. That looks really awkward. There's no way Chiaki would ever put that much effort into her positioning. It's too much exercise for a gamer. But yeah, I mean, she's gone through so many hands. There's so many writers and artists credited on her now. She does seem like she's in an overall improved state. As far as the writing is concerned, she was entertaining, she was funny, but it just felt like she didn't have any depth. And I wonder if you can add some more, because like every line, and I started paying attention. Every line was a game reference, basically. I know that's all she does. I know she's the ultimate gamer, but like, there's got to be a person under there somewhere, right? She's not just talking about her HP and her skill points or whatever. You got to add some lines like that.
Yeah, there were a few sleepy lines too.
I think they plan to make her just outright fall asleep if she doesn't already. I don't think it happened.
Yeah, that's my suggestion. Sometimes we say add more filler lines. In this case, it's like add some lines that aren't about video games. Please, I'm begging you. Some people have also said that her head might be a little too small. I kind of see what they're talking about. It may just be like some kind of misinterpretation of source art or some misapplication of it. I think it's because of like her hair crosses in front of her neck so much. It looks like her head is very separate from the rest of her body. But it does seem accurate to the source, so I don't know. Unless either of you have anything else to say about Chiaki, then it's time to move on.
I just wanted to weigh in on the the weight controversy. I think what accentuates it is because her form is hidden in her outfit, her iconic outfit. There's no communicating that before a player chooses it.
Yeah,
because the work's already done, for, say, if there was a future swimsuit costume or something like that, I feel like it could be preserved, and that where it was, you know what you're getting from the outset. There's no surprise. But I would never recommend doing that from scratch unnecessarily. But since the work may already be done, it might not be too hard. I also did like some of the video game lines that were added. Looking through, I noticed this one for when an opponent reveals are about to reveal their crotch, but they haven't revealed their chest. She'll say, "Are you about to complete your objectives out of order?" I mean, that's kind of looking at it from a gamer's perspective, but not thinking she is literally in a game. So lines like that I think do work. But yeah, I just it's a lot of seasoning right now and needs some more of the other parts of the dish.
Sequence breaking. Well, speaking of controversies, that was a weight-related one, but last time we alluded to a different kind of controversy, that being incest with Sanako and Nagisa, and we alluded to a future, or that we would talk about incest again in a future episode, the one coming up, and that is because we are talking about Jean Gunhilder. I hope I said that right. From Genshin Impact, who is the older, more responsible sister of Barbara Pegg also from Genshin Impact, but from a totally different developer. Barbara's been in the game for a while. She's like a nun, and Jean is a knight. And now you can pair them up and have fun sister sexy times, apparently. I'm not sure exactly what their approach is just yet, but I believe the team who worked on this, I know it included Cavendish, but do either of you know off the top of your heads, or do you have it written down who else was on this?
Cavendish, Cyrus, aka Lewd Dude, and Sin, this is my Sin alias.
Oh, so
with art by Just Kidding.
The guy who actually did work on
Yeah.
Barbara.
And the team wasn't established as a Genshin Impact team, it just kind of became one.
Do either of you know, by the way, why they have different last names? I mean, Jean is a workaholic knight and Barbara is a nun. Neither of them seem like the type to get married.
Apparently, their parents separated. Barbara has her dad's surname.
Interesting.
That's what Reddit tells me.
Well, anyway, yeah, that's the point I was making, is that she's a stoic, calm, very responsible, very dutiful type. And that piqued my interest quite a bit, because apparently she's always tired and expects so much of herself and doesn't accept any mistakes that she makes. And drinks a lot of coffee and is apparently rather sleepless and has a hard time delegating tasks. So that just made me light up. I was like, oh my god, it's medieval Maya. Except she doesn't have any, Maya doesn't have any sisters. It's confirmed, canon, only child. Arndress, what did you think of Jean?
Of all the characters I've played for the first time recently, Jean was my favorite. She made a really great first impression. I really enjoyed her characterization, that she's like a stand-in leader, that like what's important to her is time management and that she's organized. I felt like that came across in her dialogue in a really clear, really natural way that made sense in the game. I thought the outfit was really nice and really high detail model, with the kind of outfit that looks good, but you also, the body looks good too, so you really want to see it off. I thought I played her with Barbara and without. I understand it's early days yet, so there's not as much Barbara interaction as there could be, but I really enjoyed that the system warning was clear. That if you don't want to play with two sisters together, and some people very much will, and some people very much won't, then you could make that decision. It very much amused me when she said that she would have to schedule in time to masturbate. I thought that really that really tickled me. I think that Jean is probably already ready to go for sponsorship. Maybe not ready for the main roster yet, but I feel like what she has already is so solid that I would like to see her on that path. At this point already, I think that really it's the Barbara interactions that stand out most as holding her back from that. I haven't been paying enough attention to know who to credit for what dialogue. I know that Just Kidding did the model and he did an amazing job of it. But I thought, it was, for everyone who participated, good job, because I enjoyed all of it.
Nord, what did you think?
It's sort of a case where they just sort of update them all at once. I think Cavendish is mainly handling, like, putting it all together. I don't know. Seems to just be a team effort. I quite like her. I still only know bits and pieces about Genshin Impact secondhand, essentially. For example, some of my friends started playing it specifically to try and do a speedrun strategy of going from one island to another way before you're meant to. Everything I learn about Genshin is fascinating to learn it, like, indirectly like this. For example, like the fact that she's a knight, so they have an order of knights. But playing with her, very well put together. I do think she's... I know Alias is on the team and specifically wants to, like, help out because he wrote Barbara, and so they're going to find a way to tackle that whole matter. I appreciate that she puts her, like, capelet back on after she's finished, and she also has a pose of, like, brushing her hair after it got a little messy. It's little details like that pose that bring a character together, like show off their personality non-verbally.
I just love when they make stages look unique.
Yeah, that too.
Anything else about the experience overall?
I wish I had more to say. I just thought she was an overall very positive experience, but because I don't know her character that well from source or anything, it's hard for me to really judge. Because I don't see people like fanboying or fangirling over G in the same way like people did for Ganyu or the like. So I'm just it's a lot more of a like temperate experience of seeing her here. Like I don't have a ton of Jean memes burned into my brain.
Me neither. That's the thing with these stoic proper characters. You know, they're always playing the straight man. They don't get memed to death.
Genshin Impact is a free game, and you can meet both Jean and Barbara very early into the first part.
There's no such thing as a free game.
Cost your time.
One critique I would have is that I feel like a lot of her lines repeated early on, like, or not even just early on, but throughout the game, a lot of her lines repeated for the specific, like, bad, like, grouping dialogue together for, like, groups of stages, depending on what state she's in. So definitely,
I also noticed line repetition, as well as if she could use more pose variety as well. Same as I said with Chiaki. I don't think she even had a pose for starting her masturbation. She just kind of went from standing to into it.
So what's there is good as a like foundation. She just needs more of everything, really, would be my critique.
Overall, I would describe her as very positive and very like a very positive experience and very cute. Yeah, I agree. There's not a whole lot there, but what is there at the moment is quite strong and appealing. It gets the basics of like a stoic character, or the basic appeal of a stoic character, at least in my view, down very well. I always say, you know, with a stoic character, you want to see the cracks, you want to see them, you want to see what's there underneath. You know, she's beleaguered and harangued. And but she wants to put forth the best version of herself, and she starts getting embarrassed, you know, showing some vulnerability. She starts looking very cute. She looks cute post-forfeit. That was my overall description of her, is that her arc went from like stoic to cute. I've tried to take Maya from stoic to sexpot to varying degrees of success, but stoic to cute is a very valid alternative. And it seems like it's working out for her quite nicely. So even though there's not a lot there yet, I really did like what was there, and I'm looking forward to what they do in the future. On top of, you know, more lines and more variety, she could also use more pointed lines. I wrote for others masturbating. As always, you know, really try to suss out what she's into, and go for it. Does she want her sex life to be very rigid and scheduled and in control, or does she just want to let loose for once? Does she want to be taken advantage of? I don't know. I don't play Genshin. I don't play any game made after 2010 because there's no good ones.
What about
That
SPNatI?
means you haven't enjoyed the experience that is Skyrim, available now.
SPNatI isn't a game. SPNatI is a work of art.
I didn't have the same issues that you had with the repetition, except for the masturbating female case when Jean was also in her forfeit. She only has 2 lines in that case, and I saw both of those lines a lot. So, I mean, that's just something where more lines, more playtesting can... that might even be an error. They can fix that up.
She has very cute dark nipples as well. I'm going to throw that out there.
Hell yeah.
They're big and well defined, and honestly, a better job at big, puffy, dark nipples than I did with Barnett. Props to that.
It's really good that we get that sort of variety. But with the repetition thing still, I know we're hopping on about it a bit. I played her with like 3 male characters.
You could say we're repeating ourselves.
We're repeating ourselves? I played her with 3 male characters, including myself, the player, and I'm pretty sure all of her like big reveal lines repeated across all the characters. Yeah, just looking at her file, I'm seeing 1 line per like stage group, as I said. So definitely just having more of everything would be good. Because like for like big reveal lines, you would want at minimum 4 so that they don't repeat in a single game. Because there's only 4 opponents.
Okay, well, we talked about Chiaki, and we talked about Jean. To end things off for the evening, we have a male character, also from the Masquerade. What was the name of the team that worked on this?
Team Welcome to Die.
Welcome to Die. Strangely not making Magneto. But yes.
Well, he does have magnetism powers.
So this is a male character. This character is from Resident Evil 8, also known as Resident Evil Village, apparently. The game also, or I guess more famously known for having the 8-foot-tall vampire lady. But no, this is a male character from Resident Evil 8. Nord. Say his name.
Carl Heisenberg.
You're goddamn right. Yeah. Talk about playing second fiddle to the other Heisenberg in pop culture. I'm not sure what they were thinking going with that name. But it gives me some psychic damage whenever I see him in the folder list, because like Walter White's in this game? But no, is the as of yet very unfinished, but very promising Carl Heisenberg from Resident Evil 8. And you can tell right off the bat he's unfinished because his very detailed neck is just sticking straight out of very plain clothes on his early stages until he magically gains an equally detailed body about halfway through. This was done by Rahabim, who we've had on before, who made Wasp and Mosky. Storm, the creator of Trixie, the Goblin Girl, and Velvet, and I believe some other work here and there. And Cowpole, who I don't believe has worked on a character before, but one of the most talented artists we have lurking in the Discord, mostly making hyper-detailed models of Half-Life men. Alex Vance just remains tragically out of our reach. But for now, we have Carl Heisenberg. Very interesting choice. Arndress, I will let you lead the charge there. What in God's name were they thinking with this?
I went in with such low expectations because of the neck. But I think it's great that in the spirit of the Masquerade, a project that still is incomplete, it's a little bit under 500 lines, and some of the art is placeholder, is like that for now. However, I got the big surprise of the full body when the shirt came off, and then all of the art seemed a lot more polished, and that was quite a surprise. Just looking at all of the individual chest hairs and arm hairs and leg hairs. Oh my goodness. It really worked well for him. I thought his dialogue, obviously it's a quantity thing, would be good to have more in the future. A lot of it was so just general normal comments, and then he would come out with something really zany and quite entertaining every now and then, and I really enjoyed the balance. I thought the balance they had with that worked quite well. I don't have the context of ever having played a Resident Evil game to know what his characterization is like, and even if it was free, it's too scary for me. But I did really enjoy the way he came off. I hope that's the way they were intended, which is just like a real oddball and entertaining, and just that really high definition model, I think, really sells it. And the look he gets in his eyes sometimes is very entertaining. So yeah, a surprise enjoyment for me. Yeah, someone who I look forward to seeing get some updated images for the first 2 stages so that he can get past those first impressions that I had.
I agree. That's very. It's not a knock against him. It's laudable. I would say that they looked at this and said, it's okay to just release him with some placeholder art. That's what testing is for. They don't need to be perfect when they get on there. You work out the kinks in real time.
A lot of veteran devs are afraid, myself included sometimes, of putting art onto testing that isn't already finalized and perfect for me and already. One or two of the other Masquerade teams have even fallen victim to that, where they're still working on their art because they just can't accept anything less than having it perfect already. So it is commendable that they've gone ahead and put them on sooner rather than later, both so that they can get feedback and so that they, can show off their progress while they work. I can provide a bit more context for who he is.
Oh, thank God.
He is Karl Heisenberg. He is one of the 4. There's in Resident Evil Village. There's a mini boss squad, and he's one of them. One of the 4. He's the brother of Lady Dimitrescu. I'm probably butchering it. The vampire lady that everyone knows about. I believe their team considered doing her, but she is literally 10 feet tall, and there is no way to squeeze her into the game. So they decided, fuck it, let's go for Karl instead. His gimmick...
I said that she should just pop a squat.
Heisenberg's gimmick is that the mutations have given him organs possessed by electric eels or the like, and that gives him electromagnetic powers. So he that's the reason for the Welcome to Die team name. He literally has magneto powers. He's one of the villains. He has his own motives. He hates the other villains and has a sort of mutual respect for the protagonist that is only one way. Ethan, the protagonist, does not respect Heisenberg. But overall, I can tell why they would make him. And there's a lot of there's a fair bit of memeing about him being acting like Nicolas Cage, really hamming it up. And his voice actor actually confirmed that Nick Cage was an inspiration for his direction.
What did you think about him in the game itself?
I enjoy him a fair bit. I will preface this by saying that as a bisexual dude, I do have my preferences for men, and Heisenberg...
Yu-Gi-Oh! Protagonist?
skinny boys and muscular girls, okay? With Heisenberg, his body type just isn't to my taste, but I still appreciate it a lot. It is funny how, as soon as his coat comes off, he completely changes. But I think his stage 3 and onwards is a good preview of what his art's going to be like going, when it's finished. And I think it's a bold decision. You may agree or disagree with the idea of doing something as detailed as this, but I think Cal Pole and Rahabim are making it work. And with Rahabim and Storm writing him, I think he'll definitely at least get the usual character treatment. easily get 1,000 or 2,000 lines and make it to me and be fine. I don't know how much they want to do with him, but I'm interested to see where they go with him, with just this sort of small preview we have, because he is basically sort of he only has like 490 odd lines, so he is definitely in the sort of bare bones state, but what's there is pretty good, I would say. Like just sort of as like a proof of concept almost. And you know what? More characters should enter onto testing in this sort of state.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm of a similar opinion. I think what's there is pretty good. My main criticism is that there just isn't a whole lot there.
Uh-huh.
Yes, and I know there eventually will be, but starting with the art, like, yeah, some of it's placeholders, but even on the parts, or even on the stages that are supposed to be like more polished and more finished, there are some pretty glaring mistakes, which I think if you're going to present that contrast, then you should at least like really polish the ones that are finished.
Yeah, he has his feet on backwards for his sitting down stages. That definitely.
To be fair, it did take me a while to notice, but yeah,
it's a pretty
They are
glaring thing, and
backwards.
like I think they should definitely look to fixing that. Like I'm sure they will in time fix it.
that's yeah. You know, that's the kind of thing that a 2018 character would never have as a problem because there was no way to manipulate their legs that much in the first place.
Yeah.
2018 character would have their feet cut off.
Yeah. But there's also issues with like layering on the hair. Like there's hair, like his body hair goes over his penis, and like
Oh, I didn't even.
I know you
notice
can
that.
have hair on your penis, but not there, not on the head.
Yeah.
And also like there's no hair on his thighs when he sits down, that kind of thing. Overall, like it's difficult to determine or like to intuit what is going to remain, like what is going to stay, what's actually in a finished state, and what isn't. A lot of it, like even on the later stages, feels stiff for the same kind of reasons, you know, because it's like what I said with Chiaki, like because it's so complicated, you may not want to make a whole lot of poses. So or move him around very much more than you may have to, but that can leave him feeling kind of stiff. So that's kind of the curse of going so custom like this. But he definitely has a high ceiling in terms of how polished he can eventually become, how nice he can look in the end. He flips me off a lot. I noticed that. Every other pose, he was giving me the finger. I don't know if that's a thing, but it does feel like kind of placeholdery as well. Like you can have a less extreme negative pose than flipping me off, and sprinkle that in throughout. And his face didn't have too many variations. It felt like he didn't like it wasn't that they weren't trying to contort it very much, probably because it's a lot of different moving parts. Oh yeah, his underwear also seemed very weak. Perhaps it's ratty. Perhaps he's been living in a mine or under a hut or something.
Okay, no,
And
funny you say that. That's literally his backstory, is that like his house is more like a factory that was built over a mine.
I guess that's why it can't hold his bulge then. The other thing I would point out. But going into his writing, his personality felt uneven and unfinished, kind of like the art. He felt very generically impatient. He always wanted like, hey, show me more. Let's move things along. But I never really got a sense of like, who is this guy and what does he want? Which felt kind of disconcerting when you know he's a villain and he eventually like mutates into a horrible monster and like I guess kidnaps and kills people for organs and parts or whatever to mutate them. Because this kind of guy being pushy about like, hey, hey, gamer girl, fresh out of high school, I want you to show me your ass faster so I can harvest you or whatever's going on. I mean, he never said that, but I didn't know what to make of why he was there or what his sexuality was. It's the same thing I was saying about Yusei, where it didn't feel strong enough for like why he's there and what he's after and what he's into. So I think you gotta work that out. I mean, especially with a character like this, you want to establish that, like, no, he's not there to kill anybody. Hopefully. I don't know.
Mhm.
But those are my thoughts. I like him overall, but he really does need a lot of work. So carefully consider it. Do either of you have any final thoughts on Heisenberg? Extra challenge, don't mention Breaking Bad.
Easy for me because I haven't seen it, but
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for putting that reference on you then.
yeah, obvious jokes about the name being the same aside and all, but like Carl Heisenberg, I think shows a lot
Is
of
he a
promise.
good choice, in your opinion?
I think he's a better choice than the vampire lady because the vampire lady is literally like, I will kill all men on sight. Like, you would have
Do I
to.
get to choose how she does it? Because that could work out.
Would you like to get stabbed to death or torn in half?
All right, never mind.
Yeah, you were hoping it would be like crushes your face with her fat ass or something, weren't you?
Anyway, continue.
No, I think as far as like Resident Evil villains go, which admittedly is a narrow margin, probably one of the better choices. And like following their development process, it was fun seeing them be like hyping themselves up for it. Because obviously, like they're one of the smaller teams with only 3 people, and so all 3 of them had to like chip in to really get it taking off, and especially Rahabim helping Calpol with like posing and all that. I think they've done really well for themselves. I look forward to seeing how it develops.
Arndress, anything else you'd like to say?
I think when it comes to placeholder art, first impressions, they are a little bit of a factor, but I always worry that a character with placeholder art will be in that state forever if for some reason development doesn't continue. And as an excellent example of that, Sanako had placeholder art for her uniform. Horsecat kindly did like some like hand-drawn work to draw her uniform in her previous model, her 2018 model. But half of her images had that and half of them didn't. And I left it languishing in that state for a long time. And I really, really want to see Heisenberg get his proper outfit for his first few stages. If that happens, then I will be a very happy player.
I just want to see the guy's feet fixed.
He's just got 2 left feet, one on the left and the left one on the right.
Well, no, they're both wrong.
No, they could both be described as the left foot in a way.
Oh, one final detail is that like he uses his magnetism powers to take off his shoes and to like pull a chair over remotely. It could maybe do with like like even just as a visual thing for this game, even if it doesn't really show up in Resident Evil, like maybe adding an electrical like outline or glow or something to the metal bits he's manipulating would help sell the idea of like what he's actually doing. You know, because like if I knew that going in, and so I was like, oh yeah, he's using his magnetism. He doesn't really explain that he has magnetism powers. He just kind of uses them. So I think visually having an effect to show, yeah, he's using his magnetism power would help. Because like I know Pyrrha has that. The Misaka rework had that. So giving it to him as well would just help as a visual thing. And then obviously give him
Perhaps
that.
it's fitting that he feels a bit cobbled together at the moment. A bit mutated here and there.
Yeah.
Anyway, thanks for coming on, Nord. Thanks for coming on, Arndress. Any final comments about any of these projects that we've covered? Again, I'm happy that at least the Masquerade is successful in some regards. Hopefully we can, in the future, talk about these getting the main. Much improved. But any final thoughts, either of you?
All of them show promise, I would say. Like, even if we're being critical, they all show promise.
Every character in the last 2 episodes, this episode and the previous episode, I've enjoyed and thought a lot of. I think Jean is the highlight for me. I would love to see another update just so I have another excuse to play it, because I really want to play her for non-testing purposes, and that's a very good sign.
Yeah.
Don't forget, links in the description. submit your live cast AMA questions and submit your feedback for these masquerade characters and others on the feedback poll. But as far as I'm concerned, mask off, mask up. This masquerade is over.